It was journalist Edward R. Murrow's groundbreaking documentary, Harvest of Shame, that was credited for opening America's eyes in 1960 to the state of migrant workers and their children. The film provided an up-close look at not only the poverty endured by the workers and their families, but also the severe lack of resources available to them. According to the advocacy group Migrant Legal Action Program, that film propelled the federal government to act by providing support for migrant students. It was 1966 when the Migrant Education Program was created. It currently serves more than 300,000 3 to 21-year-olds in the U.S. Joining me to discuss the impact of this program and if it's yielding positive results is Donna Peterson Spence, Director of the Brockport Migrant Education Program, and Danielle Douglas, Adolescent Outreach Program Coordinator for the Northwest Region Migrant Education Program. And welcome to you both. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So just to begin, for people hearing about this program for the very first time, explain to me its purpose. And I'll give that to you, Donna.
Well, the purpose of the Migrant Education Program is to ensure that the children of migratory agricultural workers reach the same challenging standards for academics as other students, and to be sure that they graduate from high school or achieve a high school equivalency diploma. And historically, migrant students have had a difficult time with graduating high school. The graduation rate was far lower for migrant students than any other students. So our program offers extra educational support, advocacy leading to self-advocacy, and access to resources that helps balance the difficulties that families face in moving for agriculture work.
So talk to me a little bit about the eligibility requirements and how do families, when they come to New York, how do they know that you exist and you're here to provide those resources for them? And I'll give that to you, Danielle.
I think Donna might be able to speak a bit more to this, just given her long history at the Migrant Education Program.
Well, to be eligible for the program, the student has to move with a migratory agriculture worker across school district lines within a 3-year period for the purpose of finding work in agriculture. And then once they're determined to be eligible, they're eligible for 3 years. And if they've made subsequent moves for agriculture, they could start their 3 years of eligibility rolling again. There was another part to your question.
That's okay. Just I wanted to know also, just you mentioned the eligibility, but then how do families find out that you exist?
That's a really good question. We go back to places where we've ever known that farm workers exist. We have recruiters that go out and interview families to determine eligibility. And we kind of use a lot of word of mouth. We also ask the school districts to let us know if there are new families that might be working in agriculture, and then we send the recruiter out to interview the families to determine their eligibility.
So talk a little bit just in terms of when a student is enrolled, what happens? What does the offerings in terms of this program, are they very similar to what we would think of a student getting in a typical public school, for example? Like, how does it work?
I can speak to that a bit. So the goal of the services of the Migrant Education Program are kind of to assess the needs of the student and the family, and then advocate for their needs and help them kind of create their goals. And it's done through 3 sectors. The first is subject and content instruction, and so that's tutoring, extra tutoring, either in school or at the student's home, for both the students in school and also for our out-of-school youth, who are students that might not be in school right now, but are just working on the farms, and that can be life skills lessons on how to work with pesticides or how to open a bank account if they're new to the United States. And we also work with preschoolers and parents as well. The second part of it is this idea of advocacy to self-advocacy. And the idea is that we advocate for students in schools by helping them determine and working with parents and teachers and counselors to make sure they're placed in the right classes, that enough ESL, so English as a second language instruction, is being provided, and that all papers and documents are being sent home in Spanish if that's needed. And the idea is that over time, parents will be able and students will be able to build the confidence and skills to do that on their own. And the last piece, which is more of what I focus on by working with the high school students, is this idea of positive identity development. And that's working with students to build their confidence and make sure they're educated more on how to make career choices, how to make educational choices, so that they can have more options after and when they graduate from high school.
So in what ways, I'm curious about this, just in terms of our contentious political climate that we're living in right now, in what ways does that, if at all, pose a challenge to young people and families reaching out and saying, we're here, and our kids have different needs that they want met, they want to go to school, they want to try different things. Is this at all impacting what you're seeing in terms of your enrollment?
Yeah, for some families, because of the anti-immigrant sentiment in the communities and overall, there is some fear of repercussions if they take advantage of services that are being offered, if their families are in process for their immigration status. But there's a lot of other families that don't have to concern themselves with that particular challenge, but other challenges that are common are like transportation. Because of the isolation in rural areas, they don't have access to transportation a lot of times. They might not own a car, or the parents might not have driver's licenses. So transportation is a challenge that we face. It's also a challenge for our program. We cover 3 counties. Bringing kids together from 3 counties is kind of a transportation nightmare sometimes to make activities happen. And a lot of what Danielle does is like just organizing that kind of thing as when she plans an activity with young people. There's also, our funding is decreasing. Our numbers have decreased. Our funding is connected with the number of eligible students that are in our territory, and that has declined significantly over the last couple of decades, I'd say. It's just gradually gone down. So
in terms of connected to the number of students enrolled, that would then mean that you're not seeing those numbers of young people participating in the program.
Right. There's been changes because of social, economic, and political forces that have changed like who the farmers are hiring. They hire a lot more contract workers through a program like the H-2A program, and those contract workers tend to be over 21. They're not allowed to bring their families. So in terms of who's doing the work, it's changed a lot. There's fewer families that come.
Wow. Well, I have a number to go along with that. I know the number of eligible young people for the program declined from a high of 880,000 in the 2002-2003 school year to just over 300,000 in 2018. So that really helps to paint a picture just in terms of what you were just saying.
Yeah, just in my area, in the 22 years that I've been in the program, we went from about 1,500 students in our 3-county area down to around 350 now, currently.
Well, earlier this year, I had an opportunity to meet a young woman who was part of the migrant education program, or was, I should say, from Barker, New York, Cindy Lopez Paz. Her parents came to the U.S. from Mexico as teenagers and worked in the agriculture industry in New York and North Carolina and Florida. And she told me she was born in New York, was enrolled in the program from daycare through high school. And Cindy said, she shared her experiences. She shared some of the challenges that she faced, but she was also able to talk about what she was able to achieve. And let's take a look at our conversation.
So my parents traveled a lot from Florida to New York, but it also included like North Carolina, always doing agricultural work. So in New York, it would be apples and tomatoes. In Florida, it varied from like green beans to cucumbers And then in North Carolina, it would be sometimes blueberries and other vegetables that were around. Just in New York, mainly in New York, because the season was longer here for apples, and it went into the fall.
You said that your parents were always such huge supporters of your education. You have 2 siblings as well. You're the oldest of 3, and they were really supportive of making sure that you pursued your studies. So talk a little bit about what type of an experience you had within the migrant education program. What was available to you, and what do you think life would have been like without these things available to you?
Yeah, I think like first off, like it would have been very hard to continue my education if it wasn't for that support system included, like alongside my parents. They always helped me with tutoring and like certain subjects like math. Math was always like not my strong point, and my parents, you know, they tried their best to help us, and they would just encourage us to always go to the migrant program, and especially our tutors, for help and just to like figure things out, like if we needed more help, how we could talk to our teachers about it. Knowing that you always had a tutor to go to was like great, because you didn't have to like wonder, oh, if my teacher's gonna have enough time at the end of class. And it really helped me figure out that like I wanted to continue my education, because as a migrant child, like there's always like, oh, will I be able to go to college or not? Because like financially it is like a huge amount that you have to pay to go to school. And the migrant education program, they always just encouraged me, because they said, you know, anything is possible, and that they were always going to help us.
Let me ask you this. You were talking a little bit about how, in terms of the traveling back and forth between Florida and New York,
Yeah.
and you were with your family for that. What was that like for you, just in terms of the process of trying to get this education, but needing to bounce around from different places so that you could be with them?
Yeah, so I think it took a lot like more work to get adjusted, because going from school in New York to Florida, you know, you weren't always at the same pace in either school. So it kind of made it harder, because I was struggling in like certain subjects, like I had mentioned math, just to keep up with the work. But once I had my tutor from the migrant program, coming back to New York, she would always try her best to help me catch up or understand, or go talk to my teachers about needing extra help, extra practice on certain things. So it was hard adjusting, because I'd make some friends here and then I have to leave again. But then once that happened, you just kind of get used to it. And education-wise, it, again, like my parents always emphasizing the importance of education. So I think that always helped to keep like pushing myself to studying or doing my homework and everything like that.
What did that mean for you? Because you said you weren't sure that college was necessarily going to be an option. What was that like for you when you realized that it was in fact an option? It wasn't just an option, it was something that you would be doing, and you would have multiple offers, like you told me.
Once I knew, you know, it was something I could reach, it like made me happy, but also because it's something my parents have always wanted for us. So knowing that I'm gonna reach my goal, but also like make one of their dreams come true, it like made it like 10 times better, knowing that like I can go to college, and I did go to college.
And you were studying international relations, is that correct?
International studies.
International studies. What do you hope to be able to do with that? You graduated from SUNY Oneonta in December of 2018. What do you hope to do with your major?
Ideally, I would like to become an advocate for undocumented immigrants, just because in the political climate that we're in now, it's just harsh to see all these people and like what they go through, and then personally seeing my parents and their struggles. So it definitely gives me like more of a passion to go for something like this, because I know I can make a difference.
Cindy was able to accomplish a family dream and go to college. Is her story a rarity, or is her story more normal than people may think?
I think that it's more normal than people may think, although there's a lot of challenges that come up in that process. There's troubles when people are moving areas, there's troubles with socioeconomic issues and having access to healthcare, and there's a lot of things that all tie into a student's ability to attend college. And it kind of comes down to providing equal opportunity. And so a lot of what the migrant education program works towards is, like, if we're providing some private tutoring to students, like Cindy was mentioning, having the consistency of her tutor, that's something that wealthier families might be able to pay for a private tutor, but we're offering as a way to enable that extra help, allow students to catch up, encourage that relationship building and comfort when they move from place to place. And so that's something that I think is really valuable, as Cindy's shown and proven in all of the work that she's done.
And before we close, one thing about the program as a whole in general, just not locally, but throughout the country, is there a way to track the progress of the young people as they complete this program to see if, in fact, it is helping to break cycles of poverty?
Yeah, I know for part of it, there's a really great database that works with all the students and works with all the programs, and you're able to see students as they move from place to place. And we have a data specialist that really works to analyze all of that data.
And what are you finding with the data?
It's mixed.
Okay.
The students that graduate high school, a good percentage of them go on to get either further training in vocational skills or college. But you know, the high school graduation rate still isn't what I'd like it to be. I'd like it to be 100%, but.
What do you think it will take to get to that?
I think a whole lot of change has got to happen in order for that to happen, and for this country to really value farm workers for the important work that they do. I think would be a good step.
All right, well, we have to close for now. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but a special thank you to my guests for your insight today. I appreciate it. To learn more about Brockport's migrant education program, go to our website, wxxinews.org, and click on the Need to Know link.